My process is always rooted in sound. And in addition to that, over the years, I've become very much interested in archives. So the archival work that I do is almost always in sound archives. The other piece of it is that I became fascinated with working with people and not just archival materials. I wanted to learn more about the living communities that the archival materials might reference. And so I spent a lot of time in Shawnee and other small coal mining towns just talking to people and hanging out with them over, well, it's been 15 years now. And I continue to hang out with them today. So now many of those people are my friends. And I just love the social aspect of it. So it's bringing together this historical archival piece along with the contemporary communities that are connected to those recordings. I'm not always recording. Actually, most of the time I'm not recording. And instead, I spend a lot of time building those relationships. And then only after there's a certain amount of trust built up, and that can take a long time, will I ask if I can make a recording. But a lot of the materials that I use are pre-existing recordings. So oral histories, old folk songs, that kind of stuff, or tape phone messages, anything like that that's really informative. And then the social part of it is that I often bring those recordings back to the relatives or the people that live in those same places and let them listen to those recordings and perhaps what I've made from it. The first time I ever shared a new piece of music that I made from an archival recording, there were people in the audience that said, it sounds like, the ghosts of my ancestors. And that really struck a light bulb in my mind. And it also raised a lot of ethical questions. I wanted to use the materials in a way that had a kind of archival stewardship instead of just taking what I wanted and then using it. If I think back to the earliest pieces that I made, I was using samples of music, and I was maybe chopping them up more. I was using pieces of material that I didn't really understand or understand the contexts around. And it was only later, when I started to work with the communities connected to them, I realized that maybe a family didn't want that information out there, or just by getting the permission of a family member or reaching out to them, it just influenced the I don't know, even the music that I made might not be as dissonant or harsh or something like that. Maybe I was trying to think of those family members as my main audience, instead of some far-off abstract audience. Instead, it's this very close and personal thing that I started to make. I love the idea of storytelling. I think what I can contribute to it is adding the music as well and letting the music tell that story as well. And then, because I take so much time, oftentimes folks aren't able to spend a whole lot of time with the material, but if I can spend a decade or more with it, I can really go into that contextual depth, all of the other information around it. When I was a kid, one of my favorite activities was to sit next to my dad, while he was working on something. He was a tinkerer and a bit of an inventor, and his career was as a typewriter repairman. And so those earliest memories of, fiddling around next to him were lodged in my mind as an adult as well. And so when he passed away a few years ago, I had an opportunity to make a new piece of music, a commission, and I had inherited his workbench. So I took it apart piece by piece and then reassembled it in my own garage, and then made music to go along with it. I asked myself, what is the sound of that workbench? Or what is the sound of my father's life there? And then can a workbench contain all kinds of memories in it, almost like a very personal archive? So before I was working with formal archives, And now it's the most personal kind of archive that I can think of. And I think the objects might be considered as junk by other people, but because I have this connection through my father, these things are extremely important. They're like relics of a kind, you know. And so I began to make that piece, and we filmed the workbench in a lot of detail, almost like doing like a, you know, like taking a visual meditation on the workbench. And then the music is sort of elegiac and slow moving at first, and builds up. And then in between, interspersed, is the voicemails of my father over the past year of his life or so. And you sort of get to recognize the sound quality of his voice, which of course I love, but as it changed and as he moved through the stages of life into death or whatever, you know, it was weirdly capturing that just in our day-to-day conversations.
Other than that, have a good day, Brian. Talk to you later.
This is a surveyor's compass that belonged to my great-great-great-grandfather, who was the county surveyor in Perry County. And here's his notebooks. And I'm making a new piece from these family archival materials. And it's really made me think a lot about the land, about the history of that land, and what it means to survey the land, and finding different ways of thinking about that as well. So that's this piece.
All right, it's your dad. Give me a call when you can. Usual number. Bye-bye.